I'm going to start my video again because my iPad ran out of storage. And I'm going to try and do it a bit quicker because also the first time I tried to record this, I went on for 20 minutes. So we've had an announcement today that the WCA board will be upholding their decision to remove clock as an event from the World Cube Association events list. I'll delve into the exact details of that in a second, but firstly, I just want to talk about how I see the community feels about this decision as a whole. And I think the overwhelming thing that the community is feeling, and I need to say that the community is feeling because this is a sentiment. This might not be how things genuinely are, but I need it to be clear that this is what the world now thinks of the WCA board. And what we think is that we never ever had a chance of turning anything around. From the second that decision was made, there wasn't a word anyone could have said that would have turned this decision around. And once the board had made that decision, it was just a case of letting us shout into the void and then saying that they reviewed it and they're still going to do it. And we feel so powerless off the back of this, and we feel that we've been failed as a community. Now, I know that plenty of people watching this probably don't like clock, probably don't care that it's removed, probably benefit from the removal, a bit like myself, where I'm really not very good at clock. But you should still care. It's not just about clock, and I will delve into that. But let's talk about the situation. Clock was announced as being removed because it's not a twisty puzzle, because it's prone to incidents, because it's harder to scramble, and because it's worse for spectators because it's not as easy to watch progress from a scrambled state to a solved state from a distance. The original post was communicated out really badly. It was announced at the same time as the addition of FTO in an effort to mask the fact that they were making such an unpopular decision and cover it with an overwhelmingly popular decision. And to be honest, that's just absolutely unacceptable. And I've seen no acknowledgement that that was a bad decision. The new post, I will say, has been phrased a lot more sensitively. However, I still don't think it's sufficient and I'm still disappointed in it. I'm not going to read the whole thing out to you, but I am going to read you the reasonings they've used to uphold their decision. And actually, it doesn't refute any points that were made against clock in the forum post. We have got, this decision is driven by the fact of supporting our original decisions alongside feedback received since, including online feedback, in-person feedback, and this is from volunteers and community members, meetings with senior volunteers at NAC and Euros, detailed feedback from team and committee leaders and senior delegates, and lastly, a vote which they conducted for WCA voting members, that being full delegates and senior volunteers, to express their preferred outcome in this whole thing. Now, I think that's very vague. I think it really doesn't do justice to the outrage that has happened surrounding clock. Online feedback, I mean, I think it's a little bit of bollocks, to be honest. If you just go to that original forum post, you don't need to go and count to see that it's overwhelmingly against it. And again, we pour our heart and soul into saying why we disagree. We've refuted every single reason that was made, and I'm not going to go over that again. You go back to that post and read it, you'll see very, very valid arguments against all of the reasons they had selected to remove clock. As well as the forum, it's not just the forum. What other cubing event have you seen make a petition with over 5,000 votes? That in itself is overwhelmingly for the retainment of clock. Volunteers being polled, I think, is a very short-sighted way of doing it because they're really not the key stakeholder in this situation. At the end of the day, the customer of the WCA is the competitor, and the interest of the competitors should be at heart, not the interest of the volunteers mainly. But I'll come back to that. There is no mention of the petition in this post. That is a really, really important factor because it's an overwhelming thing. Some of the ways that have been protested, in like the ways people have protested in this situation, are unlike anything we've ever seen in cubing. I'm talking about the petition. I'm talking about the protests at European Championship with displays of a gravestone for clock, with people chanting in front of the whole WCA board to keep clock, the whole room, loudly. I'm talking about the dude at North American Championship who bought a bloody van saying "Save Clock" on the side of it. And yeah, in this post, they don't really refute any of the points that were made against them in the comments, and that just really does a disservice to everyone who went out there and made some points. If you really want us to believe that you've gone and taken our feedback on, then please do respond to it. And lastly, there's absolutely no data in that post. Now, there was a vote. There definitely was a vote. And I'll tell you what I say next with a pinch of salt, because the way they did the vote was with a single transferable vote where you basically put your first preference and second preference. So they had like an A, B, C. The A was remove clock, B was keep clock but in a lower tier, and C was keep clock as it is. Now, if you just take people's first votes, then more people are in favour of keeping clock than removing it. However, the way it's been counted is to remove B because it was the least popular and divide its votes out based on the second choices, at which point more people under that system vote to remove clock. However, I don't really think there was any malice intended in that way of counting up the votes. Unfortunately, the real problem I have with this is that our delegates were polled about this, and I don't know about you, but I wasn't surveyed by them. If I were a delegate and I were told to make a decision like this that affects my community, how would I decide what to vote? I would put a survey out. And if I had a first and second choice, my first choice in that poll would be the most popular, and my second choice would be the second most popular. But instead, people have made that decision for themselves. If you're a delegate and you can save some time at your next major championship, where you're slightly less likely to have a clock-related incident, I think that it's a real disservice. But that's just a shame. I still think the board's mostly at fault here. But yeah, it's gone. There's nothing we can do about it. So why should you care anymore, right? You're not a big clock fan. You're not even good at clock. It actually ruins your summer ranks. Well, you should care. Because if you look back at that original post, what it says at the end is we're going to be looking at Big Blind in future, and we're going to be looking at 7x7. And if you come back to that thought that nothing we could have said here would have changed their mind on that, then you look at that board post and say, okay, so they want to get rid of 7x7 and 5 blind. Well, there's nothing I can do to stop that. Obviously, I've just seen case in point, the fastest growing, one of the most popular events is getting removed. Well, these events are less popular, and the board wants them gone, so I'm not going to practice 7x7 because it's getting removed in a few years, and I'm not going to become a 5 blind solver because it's going to get removed, and then the board's going to go, look, these ones are dropping in popularity all of a sudden. So we should just remove it. So And then you lead on from that and you say, okay, they're going ham on this. They've removed 7x7 because it doesn't really bring anything unique over 6x6. And so now we're in a situation where we're looking at 6x6 and we're saying, well, 6x6 doesn't really bring anything unique over 5x5. And then you're having another situation where you're like, oh, well, we removed 5 blind. I mean, now what's the least popular event now? 4 blind is less popular. Fewer people can do 4 blind. Or maybe that's next for the chopping block. And eventually you get to this point where we're just shrinking down our events list. Again, I haven't seen this happen, but that's the thoughts in my head now. I look at 7x7, I look at 5 blind, they're fucked. We're trying to get towards being a sport, right? That's the goal of cubing at the moment, for better or for worse. And I don't hate the idea of it. I don't personally think it's as achievable as we think it is. But even if you could do it, right, and it is possible probably, if you were to write out the big list of these are all the things we need to do to make cubing a sport, and you were to write them all down, put them in the order of which order you should prioritise your things to do to get cubing to become a sport, clock is nowhere near the top of that list, I'm certain. So I don't know. I think the problem is, right, and this is only a theory, and this is just something that's been going through my mind, is that I'm pretty sure when you're on like the WCA board, you have a fixed term, and I think you probably can be re-elected. I really don't know how it works, but you come in for a term, and when you're at risk of only having that certain period of time to go and make your mark and go and make your changes in cubing, then you're more likely to go out there and do something drastic. And this is drastic, and unfortunately I think it's a really bad decision, but you know, if you're in that position, you want your legacy to be that you made a big change and it took a step towards the goal of the WCA, rather than the one who made a big change but actually it was terrible and everyone hated it, so we backed out. I get it. I get why you feel like that. But unfortunately, you should be doing that role with the community at heart, and this is not with the community at heart. Like it or not, the whole spectator friendliness thing and the whole non-cubers watching cubing because it's entertaining, it's an imaginary audience, and I don't think we can really argue with that. It's an imaginary audience. And so, unfortunately, I've got to say that this current iteration of the board, I really hate to say it, you've lost my faith and you've lost my support. And I think a lot of people would echo that. I'm not going to go on anymore, but I'm very upset with this decision. I'm very daunted for the future of cubing, and I can only hope that the current board can't get the next few events removals over the line before they're all done with their terms. Really, really pains me to say something so blunt like that, but that's how I now feel about this. I'm just worried for the future of cubing because I like all of these events, and I just think some of them are going to get removed. You know, my main event, 3 blind, is probably safe, but I like 4 blind, I like 7x7, I like 5 blind. But why should I practice them now? Well, you've just put it into my head that you want to remove them, and if you decide to, there's nothing I can do about it. So you just spoil my competing experience a bit. Thank you very much. So that's where we are. I'm sure there's still people who are very happy about this, and I'd love to be proven wrong about this, but I'm pretty certain it's not going to happen. So thank you to everyone who went and made a big fuss about why this was a bad decision, and I'm sorry again to everyone who's affected by this really appalling choice. Thank you to anyone who stuck around and watched this video to the end. I did fly off the handle a little bit there, but that's that. I'm just going to stop.